So, okay. Don't you love when you can't find? There we go. Okay, thank you. I feel like it's been a long Monday. So let us share. Can you guys see this okay? Perfect. So I'm also going to pop up the chat. So we're going to go through. So today is on evaluating funding offers. I love this cartoon. So it says, we can't choose grad school based on how their weather is. And then the second panel is, yeah, I guess you're right. And the third one is, why not? And it's like, because. And then this person's like, well, I'm allergic to snow, so no. And this is PhD Comics. If you've never heard of PhD Comics, it's definitely worth checking out. Some of these are a little too real sometimes. So but I just wanted to start with that. Again, we're going to really try to have a candid conversation here today. So the agenda for today, I'm going to just give a little preview of some of the information that maybe you're considering when you're evaluating funding offers. And so this is going to primarily be focused on grad school funding offers, but I highly encourage you to have conversations about evaluating funding offers for summer research or other funding offers kind of as you move into your circles later today. So we're going to start with a case study, and this will take probably about half an hour, 40 minutes or so. And then we're going to jump into the circles and allow you guys to discuss, and then we'll wrap up with some assignment information as well after 8:20. So yeah, breakout rooms, you guys are pros at this point. So I'm going to talk a little about the application timeline and some considering factors as you're thinking about funding offers and you're thinking about grad schools. So I'm going to speed through some of these things because, again, you're going to submit your graduate program applications November, December. Many of you have started to receive those acceptances. You might have started to receive some rejections, and that's okay. That's part of the process of graduate school. We're going to talk next month on how to fail gracefully and how we handle rejection as well. So we have, in January, you start to get those that information back from universities. And then really February is, I know some of you guys have already visited some campuses. You're going to start to, ask yourself, where might be the best place you can do your research and your graduate studies. So you might be considering factors like location, the research itself that you're going to be doing, the environment. It's important to get along with other grad students on campus because they will be your peers. They will be your support system and your cheerleaders and advocates. And you do want to also, during this February time period, start to identify who might be a mentor for you. If you decide to come to Purdue, which would be amazing, but we're going to support you wherever you decide to go, that you already have this network of graduate mentors through the grad track program who will informally be there for you in the future as well. So in March is, about the time, again, when it's about the end of the time when you're going to start hearing or you'll finish hearing from different programs. And March is also the time when you will start to hear back from external fellowships if you apply to those. And then April is really the time when you get to decide when or decide where you would like to go. So April 15th is a universal deadline when schools will expect to hear back from you for graduate school. And I will talk a little bit more about that later, but that is the Council of Grad School. No university can make you decide or can force you or twist your arm to decide whether or not you have to go to that grad program. They can't make you decide before April 15th. And so I will continue with this timeline towards the end of my slides as well. So what are some things to consider when making your decision? And I know that you all dropped some of those things into the mentee poll, so thank you so much. I'll show that in a moment. But some things to consider when you're making your decision of where to go to grad school and what offer to accept is, one option is rankings. So how, and that's something you might consider. You might really put rankings up high on your list. You might put it really low. And so that's something that you will have to consider whether, like, where you have that placed. Money, right? So money is another thing that you will need to consider when making your decision. So cost of living is really important, and the money offered versus the cost of living is another scenario that you'll have to consider. So for example, $30K in West Lafayette, Indiana is not the same as $30K in Boston. So, just being able to understand that, and I'll also provide some resources in this slide deck when I share it out after, of places you can go to learn more about cost of living as well. Location, right? Location's important. Do you want to be near your friends and family? Or do you want to kind of move someplace and put your own roots down for 4 to 6 years for your PhD, or 2 to 3 years for your master's degree? Do you want to be a big city? Do you want to be a small city? I know for me personally, when I was thinking about graduate school, I did my undergrad in a different location away from my family, and I really wanted to get back closer to my family in the Boston area for my PhD, mostly because my sister had a little baby, so I wanted to be there as she grew up. But but it's really interesting how life can take you in different places as well. So now, it makes sense for me to be here in Indiana. So you have to consider where you are and what you're really looking to gain out of school in terms of where that location fits on your rankings when you're trying to make a decision. Opportunities. So again, thinking about the lab you want to join. Do you click with the professor? Is that faculty member really young and more established? So these are things to consider when you're thinking about a graduate program. What do I want to do after my graduate degree, and can my program take me there? So looking at alumni outcomes can be really helpful. So all these things kind of factor in. And then again, I think the fundamental piece of trying to make your decision about where to pursue your graduate degree and what kind of offer to accept is, am I in the best place possible to do my best work? Because you will want to be in a place that you can succeed and you can truly do your best work for your graduate degree. And so this is just the word cloud that you guys put in. So a lot of that you filled out before this session. So advisor fit was really important for many of you. And so, at that point, it's really important that you're reaching out to faculty ahead of time, you're talking with them, and you're seeing, do you have a good relationship there? Stipend, money is obviously important for sure. And so that's something that you'll want to consider. Funding, stipend, faculty placement and ranking, location, weather. I get it. Weather is important. Today it was a nice 60 degrees in West Lafayette, Indiana. I have the windows open. It was very exciting. Not typical for February. I will preface that, but it was really nice. And so, all of these things will inform your decision of where to pursue your graduate degree. And, again, they'll factor into what that offer really looks like. And where you will choose to ultimately accept to go to graduate school. So, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to flip over to a case study. And what this looks like is I will drop into the chat a couple links before we really kind of break out. We're actually going to start this first case study of Susie Sunshine. We're going to do that together. And basically, for this case study, we have 4 different hypothetical people, and each of them have 3 offers that they've been given. And so we're just going to talk over some of these offers and pros and cons with them. And, one thing that I do want to preface this is that, there is no right answer. What works for you might, not be great for someone else or vice versa. So this is something that, certainly we want to discuss. And I do want to say again that all of those factors we just talked about, everyone will rank them a little differently. So again, there's no right answer for these, but we want to kind of dig into some of these offer letters and kind of go through some pros and cons. So for this first one, like I said, Susie Sunshine, we're going to work through together. And then I will allow you guys to break out into your breakout rooms and talk through the other ones together. So we're going to meet Susie Sunshine. She is a senior mechanical engineering major who really wants to go to a master's degree program with a thesis in aerospace engineering. She has a really pretty decent GPA of 3.65 and a really high technical GPA as well. She's completed kind of all of those aerospace engineering courses. She's done an internship at Boeing and has really strong letters of rec, that's from her supervisor that express her ability to solve problems, that talk about her technical skills and her ability to work as a team. And she was really involved in different student organizations, but she hasn't really connected with faculty outside the classroom. And so, letters of recommendation will really only talk to her ability to complete the coursework and may not talk about the research. And so she is interested in research because she's interested in this thesis program. So Susie applies to a whole bunch of grad programs, and specifically she gets 3 offers back. The first offer is from University A. So she's accepted into that master's degree program. That program says in the offer letter, there's 32 hours of coursework and 8 hours of research for her thesis, but she doesn't get guaranteed funding for that master's program. University B, she's accepted to that master's program again. It's a thesis, and it's 32 hours of coursework and research. But at University B in California, master's students don't typically receive funding. And then there's University C that she's accepted to with, she's accepted to the master's program. It's again thesis based, so she gets to do research. And so there's a mix of coursework and research, and she gets a funding offer, which is a 2-year, $15,000 fellowship, and they pay 50% of the tuition. So I'm going to stop screen sharing really quick, and I'm going to drop a couple links into the chat. But does anyone want to unmute or drop in the chat where you think maybe Susie Sunshine might choose while I drop these in? Or does anyone want to talk through something that stood out? Okay, yeah. So Laura, okay, all of the grad students are saying University C. So you want to chime in on maybe why? Or none, yeah.
Funding is good. Funding is great. And also the fact that they cover part of the tuition is a big thing, especially because if you're coming from out of state, that out of state tuition for your grad program can be really pricey if it's not fully funded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely something to consider, right? So out of state tuition can really jack it up. And so ideally, depending on if you're going for a master's or PhD, sometimes they'll cover 100% of that tuition, right? Which would be really nice as well. So I just dropped a couple links into the chat. So hopefully as we're working through these, you can actually pull these up and see. Can you guys open that PowerPoint link okay? Okay, cool. So that one was a pretty easy one, right? You go where the funding is, right, for that master's degree. But you would expect that for a master's degree, sometimes you can't get that funded. And sometimes you will be paying for a master's degree. So that's, something that we do want to put out there, that if you're thinking about wanting funding for your graduate degree, a PhD really is, that best option for getting paid to do your graduate degree and your graduate work. Okay. So I'm going to screen share again. Any comments or questions on that first one?
I actually have a comment about masters and funding, because I agree that by and large, PhDs normally are the ones that get the funding the easiest, but that shouldn't mean that you shouldn't give up hope, because I did find funding in the end, and it wasn't my advisor who funded me. It was actually another organization within the College of Engineering. So sometimes you have to get more creative, but for any of you who are out there looking for that, I have faith that you will find it. So good luck.
Yeah, thank you for that, Emily. And it is true, right? If you're looking for your master's, sometimes maybe you don't get picked up by a faculty member for, you know, research assistantship, but there are some other assistantships in different programs such as teaching and or kind of graduate assistantships. So there are other ways of funding your master's. I do have to preface that, and we'll get to one example of a professional master's degree, which typically, if you are not doing research, it's harder to get funding for that master's degree. So it can vary, but we definitely want to have that discussion too. Okay. So I'm going to screen share again really quick, and we'll talk through the next student, which I think is Billy Taylor. And now that you guys have that, you should be able to follow along there. But Billy Taylor, I'm just going to actually make this just a little bigger. We're going to do it like this. Billy Taylor is a junior in civil and environmental engineering. And he's hoping to eventually pursue a PhD in this field when he finishes his bachelor's degree. So he has a really high GPA. He's a junior, and he's not engaged in any undergraduate research yet or completed any internships. But he has completed some project-based courses in civil and environmental engineering and has gotten to talk with some of the faculty and gotten to know them a little bit. He's a member in a student organization, but not really active. And so, once he's a senior, he applies to 3 universities, University A, B, and C again. And let me do this. Sorry. Okay. So University A, he's accepted into that PhD program in civil and environmental engineering. He has a funding offer of, you guys see this okay? Yeah. Okay. Funding offer. So for the first one, it's 50% assistantship. So half-time assistantship in either research or teaching. So he has this $2,000 monthly stipend with tuition covered, a partial fee waiver. He's eligible for a renewal each year. University B he's accepted into a PhD in civil and environmental. This is a 2-year funding offer, including a stipend of $25K a year and a 50% tuition and fee waiver. And the student is responsible for the remaining 50% of that tuition. And then a fellowship after fellowship, he's eligible for an assistantship. And then University C in Massachusetts, again, another PhD in civil and environmental, 1-year fellowship, $30K, includes tuition and fee waiver, years 2 and 4 funded on 50% assistantship, so $2,500 monthly stipend, tuition and partial fee waiver. So any thoughts on this one right here? So I guess one question is, you see these numbers, right? And sometimes you're like, $2,000 monthly stipend. And then you see 25K and you're like, 25K, that's so much, right? But then you do the math and then you're like, oh, well, $2,000 monthly is at least 26, right? Or 24. Wait, math, 24. It's about the same, right? And then this one, you actually have to pay for that 50%. So any thoughts on what where would you go and why? Where should Billy choose? I'm going to stop sharing and you guys can always poke out to that link. Not University B, Laura. Yeah, not anywhere that makes you pay for tuition, right? No. Do any students have thoughts on this or any questions? Or Angel, do you have something to say?
Yeah, there's enough stress in a PhD to be worrying about paying like tuition. So yeah, definitely not University B.
Michaela, pick A, yeah, and then Rachel C. So why would Rachel, why do you suggest C?
The 1-year fellowship would be nice so that first year you can really get some experience in the lab and also get some coursework out of the way and not have to worry about working. So it gives you a year to get yourself accustomed to the university, to your lab, your advisor, what everything looks like. And then after that, it looks like you're guaranteed to have a 50% assistantship. So you still get that really good opportunity to either be an RA or TA with the tuition and fee waiver covered and all that. But yeah, you get that 1 year of a little bit of freedom to adjust. And then after that, you still have a guaranteed opportunity to continue making money. So.
Yeah, and Michaela commented, she said, I think it would cost more to live in Massachusetts, and that is fair. So
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It would be like that 30K is more like a 15K equivalent to Indiana. So option A sounds a little bit better to me.
yeah.
I'm also from the Northeast, so Massachusetts sounds a lot more appealing to me than Indiana, but that is just me.
But I do agree that, so, again, I lived in the Boston area until about 2018. My rent was like $1,500 a month for like a hole in the wall. So, so again, your stipend will go a lot further out here or in the Midwest versus in Massachusetts. But again, location is a different factor for every single person. And so making sure that, you can juggle that, or, if you're living in Massachusetts with 30K, maybe you have a budget. So, and I will be transparent that I made well over 30K as a grad student in Massachusetts. So, because you needed it to live. So, so certainly, that'll look a little different in terms of University A or University C. So again, any other comments or any other questions while you're reading through that?
I do have a comment. I think I would also prefer University A because there's a possibility of a research assistantship right away. So actually, contrary to Rachel, I in hindsight, preferred having the assistantship right away because it pushed me to start contributing to the project. And I think that was really good for me, whereas compared to some other peers that I had maybe a little bit of a slower start in terms of research because they didn't have that push and they didn't have an advisor who was sort of working closely with them to make sure that they were getting results right away. So I think it depends on the personality of the individual. And for me, a research assistantship was very important for me to start getting going quickly. However, if I could, if there was the possibility of it being a teaching assistantship, that necessarily wouldn't be my favorite because then you have to do teaching responsibilities on top of the research. So if I could get some kind of commitment to the research as opposed to the teaching before I started, that would be really, really important.
That was great feedback. Do any of our students have any questions on some of this that we've discussed so far? Okay. Do you guys want to just continue as a big group? Because I think that this conversation is really helpful, I think, to have in a larger group setting. I was going to like bump you out into your circles to chat, but let's keep this as a large group discussion, and then we'll bump you guys out in circles after. So very, very cool. Okay, so we're going to meet Sally Valentine now. So let me find her. There we go. So our student number 3 is Sally Valentine. So Sally is a senior in chemistry major, so a little different, who's hoping to earn a PhD in bioengineering. She has a 3.4 overall GPA and a 3.5 technical GPA. She's worked in 2 different undergraduate research experiences with 2 different faculty members. Each of them was willing to write her a letter of rec, which is really helpful for that graduate admissions process. And they can really talk about her strengths in the classroom, in the lab, and her overall ability to conduct research. She's been involved in undergraduate mentoring programs and has completed an internship at a government research lab during the summer. So lots of previous research experience she has. And so her 3 offers are University A in Indiana. So that's a PhD in Bioengineering, she's funded 50% of the time. Let's see this for a sec. She's funded 50% of the time. There we go, make this a little bigger. And so half-time research assistantship, which if you didn't get a chance to watch the funding video, most students are funded on those 50% or half-time research assistantships. And she has a first-year fellowship of 10K, so that's on top of that research assistantship. So the monthly stipend of this amount and includes tuition and partial fees, and it can be renewed until graduation. And then University B in Connecticut, she's accepted into the master's program in bioengineering, and then upon completion, she can apply for the PhD. And then funding is a 2-year teaching assistantship, and the monthly stipend is about the same, which includes a 75% tuition and fee waiver. So not completely 100% there. And then the last university in New York, she's accepted directly into that PhD in bioengineering, funded for 1 year on a fellowship with a stipend of 40K and full tuition and fee waiver. And so she needs to secure her advisor and find an advisor within that first year, and future funding kind of with that research assistantship after that first year. So looking at these, which one would you choose and why? I'm going to stop sharing so we can see everyone in chat. A. Any of the students after looking at, so Yana, A, so why, why would you choose A?
I chose A. Well, I know definitely not B because you have to pay for the master's and you're not guaranteed. You're eligible to apply for the PhD. You aren't like guaranteed you get into the PhD program. And hold on, let me pull up C.
Yeah.
Oops, my TV is freezing.
You're fine.
Yeah, okay. And C, I said no because she hasn't secured her funding yet for C. I mean, it's great that she got in, but like her research professor is kind of like up in the air. So A seems like the best bet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so again, like, you know, it can really, for that last one with the 1 year fellowship, you know, it can really depend on what you want in your first year. Like Rachel had described, you know, sometimes it's helpful to come in and just focus. But then, you know, as Emily described, sometimes it's good to come in and have that solidified. So, you know, that will really depend on kind of you and what you're looking for. In terms of starting with a master's degree and moving into a PhD, I agree that, you know, not being like having to pay for your master's kind of stinks, but let's flip that scenario and say maybe the master's was completely paid for. Is that any grad students want to chime in about how that offer would look if your master's degree is paid for and then you complete your master's and continue to a PhD? Is that Laura?
That would actually, I think I would go for that, because what if you go to grad school and you realize a year in, hey, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not really liking, you know, my advisor, maybe I'm not liking the research I'm doing, or, you know, maybe it's just too much. Maybe I don't really like, I can go into industry with a master's degree and I don't necessarily need a PhD. Then you sort of have the opportunity to find a good stopping point and then pursue something else without having a bunch of like debt or whatever left over from having to pay for your master's degree. So also, if you go into a PhD program with your master's degree, it usually doesn't take as long to graduate, because all of your, well, depending on whether or not your credits will transfer, you won't have to do, you know, the coursework that most PhDs have to do in their first couple of years. And, you know, you might also be more capable of doing research projects on your own already. So you have a running start when you're starting your PhD out. So I think it's probably a good opportunity.
I completely agree with Laura.
I want to make just a couple comments on these offers. I think part of this also points to the importance of when you are able to do your campus visits and you're also able to talk to some of the faculty members, because as a lot of the comments here are pointing out, depending on your situation and what you're looking for, any one of these may be your best offer for what you're looking for who you want to work with, for the type of environment you want to step into. And a lot of that is determined alongside these funding offers. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is in the first offer, if you notice, it's actually for an academic year appointment. And so that's something to watch for when you're getting funding offers from different universities, is whether it's based off of an academic year or a fiscal year or calendar year. And again, one's not necessarily better than the other. It's just important to be aware of what that funding actually is for. And so that academic year, they have the potential for you to be funded during the summer. Depending on what you're looking for, you may actually prefer an academic year funding appointment, and then you have that summer to potentially do an internship if you wanted to do something like that. Or your summer is where you really focus on your research and opportunities like that. And so that's just something else to watch for in letters is it an academic year appointment, or is it a fiscal year full 12-month appointment?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you, Janet, for chiming in on that. And one important thing is for all the current undergrads on the call, if you have questions about these things, we are your network, right? Like, you can come and ask us these things. And certainly if you have offers right now, like, you can talk with your mentors about these things, right? Pros and cons of these things. And that's also why we're doing the semester meetings with mentors and mentees. So definitely chat with your mentors about these different things. And in terms of like going master's to PhD, that's fairly common. Sometimes you'll actually apply to programs direct PhD and they'll say, we want you to get your master's along the way, and we'll support you in that. And so just recognizing these different ways and different avenues, that there's many different avenues to get from point A to point B to get your PhD. And the most important thing is that you're supported in your journey there, and that you find the right fit. So I guess one thing to talk about too is in that first offer, there's that first year fellowship of 10K on top. And so sometimes you will get these first year fellowships that are kind of like a signing bonus that kind of sweeten your first year deal. So that does happen sometimes. Doesn't happen all the time. It's kind of rare, but it can happen sometimes. But just be aware that you'll have that first time kind of money, but you'll want to budget kind of long term, right? Because you might not have that in your future years of your study. And I know we had some, Iana.
So I just had a quick question for the people who did their master's first. If you're doing a master's, but a PhD with a different faculty advisor, or maybe you're doing it at a completely different school, do your master's credits transfer, or do you have to basically start all over again?
Laura, did you have an answer to that, or did you?
I have, I have experience, I think. So this is like, this can look very different in different schools and in different universities. So I'm gonna talk just about my experience. So I started my PhD in engineering education, but then I wanted to also get my master's degree along the way. I chose to go for my master's in a different school. I can get it in my own school, but I chose to go to a different school, which is here at Purdue in computer engineering. Now, these two schools are very different. So the credits that one school admitted were not the same as the other school admitted. So in my case, I had to actually do like double work. So I took 10 classes over computer engineering, and then I also had to take another 10 classes over engineering education. But this was my choice because I could have chosen a master's degree in my own discipline, and that would have taken over my coursework, and then it would be like most of the credits would have been able to be transferred. Or I could have chosen to go to a different engineering discipline and get my master's, which like had like a more flexible structure of credits, and then I would have been able to transfer. So it really depends on what exactly do you want to do. So in my case, I just wanted to do it that way, and that is what I did. So I actually had two different advisors, one for my master's degree and one for my PhD degree. And this was helpful. Like it was hard, I guess, at the beginning, but it was also helpful because it raised me two different networks. So I have a network over computer engineering and a network over engineering education. And that can be helpful sometimes, but of course it's like tough to take that amount of credits.
Yeah, and I think it will depend on, again, how closely aligned those disciplines are. If you decide to be at one university and then go to another, if you're in, you could do your master's at one university and decide, oh my gosh, I love this field. But you know, I like that collaborators work way better, and I want to go do my PhD over in, you know, that other university. And so, so certainly, if you are close in those fields, most universities will allow you to transfer a certain amount of credits from one university to another, but it will depend on that field and each specific university. So, okay. In the interest of time, let's hop over to our final. Our final person, who is Justin Moon. So Justin Moon is a senior in electrical and computer engineering, and he is thinking of earning a professional master's degree in electrical and computer engineering. So he has a 3.2 overall GPA. He's completed a whole bunch of internships with different companies, has a really solid letter of recommendation from his supervisors. He's active at his current university in the university student senate. He's a member of a mentoring program, and he's also completed a little bit of research. He's only really worked with the graduate students in the lab and did not have any interaction with the faculty supervisor. And he's considering asking one of the grad students to write him a letter of recommendation. So Justin applies and he gets 3 offers. University A, so he's accepted to a master's of engineering in electrical and computer engineering. So about 32 hours of coursework, and he has to complete some professional development. He can do it in 1 year. He'll do a year and he'll like fall, spring, and summer. But it is self-funded, and that tuition will cost $34K plus fees. University B, he's accepted to a master's of engineering in ECE, 36 credit hours. He can complete it in one year. And again, it's a self-funded program where tuition costs $40K. University C, master's, again, he's accepted in ECE, 46 credit hours of coursework, self-funded, costs $25K, $25,000, and tuition typically increases each year. Where would you go and why?
Which one is the highest ranked?
Yeah, that's true, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you gotta pay, then why not choose the best one?
Mhm. Lardon, University A, since it can be completed in 1 year, has less credit hours, has a professional development component.
Sorry. For me, definitely not University C that has a 1.5% chance of increase in tuition every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, recognizing that tuition can go up, right? And so what you start paying year one might not be, what you're going to be paying towards the end. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, I was going to say one comment regarding to the expectancy for graduation. And like you have for the option A, 32 credits, and you also need to do some professional development activities or something like that. So maybe that could be unrealistic, even they put it like in this way. So maybe that's just one comment, not the economical part. So if you have in your mind that you can finish this in 1 year, maybe you will have to put some big effort with yourself, and maybe that's too much pressure.
Yeah, maybe that's when you want to talk with alumni and say, okay, how feasible is it to get through with this in 1 year, right? So talking with alumni or talking with current grad students, really, really helpful, right?
Yeah, because if you have grad courses, don't expect that this will be the same level as undergraduate courses. So that they will put maybe some more homeworks, and the midterms you will need to prepare more. So
I had a comment about, so with University C, the 1.5% increase is just 380 something bucks. So if you're doing a master's, which you'll have most likely complete in 1 to 2 years, like if you complete the master's, and if you can complete that master's in 1 year, then it'll be cheaper than going to University A, if that's one thing you're looking at. But if University A and University C, you'll both have to, if it'll take you 2 years to complete both programs, then University C will actually be cheaper.
Yeah, so doing some mental math, right? Of, okay, how long is it actually going to take me to complete this? And how much will that cost actually be? Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, and one thing I did want to point out, right, is that we were talking about these professional master's programs, right? So these are the ones that you can't get covered with funding in terms of assistantships, because there's no research component here. It's only coursework. So, Rachel commented in the chat, consider working in industry, right? Since it's only courses, you could have your company pay for this type of degree. So, and they'll pick up tuition. So this might be, another avenue, depending on how you're thinking about graduate school, to potentially follow. So excellent. Okay, did anyone think it was weird that he was going to ask a graduate student to write him a letter of rec in the beginning?
Yes, I mean, it was weird. I had a personal experience with that. I was approached by a senior to write recommendation for her because I taught I was TA to one of the classes, and I told her that I'm not too sure that is right. I'm willing to write for you, but I think you need to confirm that I don't think graduate students should write for you. Maybe you need to confirm, and she did confirm that it would be best to get from the professors. So that's my thought.
I would say as a graduate student, you would want to be that connection between like the student and the professor. So yeah, make sure to have that happen. You don't want to put yourself on the letter.
Yes, and so I will comment on that. In terms of Justin Moon's situation, Justin should have written an email to the graduate student and the faculty member and said, Professor X, I worked in your lab with graduate student Y, and I'm applying to these grad programs. Can I get a letter of recommendation? And that's, I think, the appropriate way of kind of asking for that. So you never want to ask a graduate student directly. It should always come from that faculty member. And grad students here, if you're ever put in that situation, definitely say, hey, reach out to the faculty member, CC me. I'll likely contribute a paragraph or two, but the letter should come from that faculty member. So, okay. Any other kind of comments, knee-jerk questions about some of these different funding offers we talked about? before I quickly roll through the rest of my PowerPoint? You guys will have time to discuss these in circles as well. So, okay, then I am going to jump through the rest of this, and then we'll break off into circles. So acceptance timeline and next steps. So you've applied to programs, you've been accepted to programs. Now what, right? So in April, you'll start accepting your offer. You'll decline the offers that you decide to not accept for graduate school. In May, you'll finish up your undergrad if you're still in your undergraduate studies, and you will graduate. And then there's actually some really cool programs. If you do want to start your graduate degree early, you can come for what is called a bridge program, where you can actually come to campus early and start kind of your research over the summer before your classes start in the fall. So that is an option. You normally have to ask about these things, but that typically exists at a lot of different universities. In June, you'll work, travel, maybe go on vacation, take a little breather before you start your graduate studies. But if you start in the lab early, you'll start talking with a faculty member or your PI or principal investigator, start reading papers related to the research you'll be doing. If you're starting with that thesis master's, you'll do that in June and July. And then in August, you'll move and you'll get acclimated to your new environment, and you'll start your graduate program. It's really, really exciting. And so it's really important as you're thinking about kind of this timeline after you accept an offer, to know your start date, know the expectations that are aligned with your offer. So read your offer letter very, very carefully. That is why I dropped those in the chat. So feel free to kind of read over those and see what they can look like. And expectations are really important. You want to allow enough time for you to get settled in that area before you start grad school. And again, it's going to be an exciting time. You're going to be working hard in grad school. And so, take some time to really enjoy that, the accomplishment of applying, getting accepted, and really kind of get in the right mindset for the program ahead. And, a lot of people are really anxious. There are discussion boards and forums out there that you can go to learn about whether or not people have been accepted or rejected from certain programs. These are all self-reported, so that is a big caveat. So just know that they're out there. And again, I told you that April 15th is that national deadline to respond to offers of financial support, which means if a school extends you an offer, you can wait until you get all of your offers in to make an informed decision. So you have until April 15th to accept and reject those financial offers. So don't feel pressured. You can take your time to make that good decision. So in summary, how do you choose a grad school and how do you choose a funding offer? You want to first identify those criteria that's most important to you. And talking with different grad students and talking with people there on campus can be really helpful. You'll evaluate that grad school funding offer. So keep in mind what you find important and what you designate as important criteria. Do your research. And then, you're going to accept the offer that is the best fit for you. And then you want to, really plan your transition for a successful start, which we will talk about towards the end. Here's just some resources to understand rankings. US News World Report's helpful. Alumni outcomes is really helpful. So you can typically find that on many different program websites. ASEE has profiles on most universities, and the CNN Money Calculator can be really helpful as well. I'll drop that into the chat of how far, how you compare cities in the United States to one another for living. And there's definitely different resources to look for at each institution. So I am going to stop sharing. And I am going to break you guys off into breakout rooms. So in your circles, I'm going to encourage you to talk about you're kind of evaluating funding offers. If you pull up the Grad Track Action Pack, There's a whole bunch of questions at the end of that to go through. And one friendly reminder is to make sure that all of the undergrads here, if you've applied to some grad programs, that you send those over either in the general channel via Slack or by email to Lexi. And Lexi is on the call as well today. He will be compiling that for the Grad Track Trophy. So I am dropping kind of your to-dos in the chat. Any questions before we break off? And you'll probably stay out there until like 8:25 or so that you can have enough time to chat. No? Okie dokie. So I'm going to open rooms and everyone should be able to share screen. So feel free to move off into your circles and have some good conversation. And thank you all. Let me know if you need help moving. I am going to share my screen. I just hit recording. We do have, and so I am going to encourage you all to come to Mondays because these are our very awesome live sessions to chat. But if you guys ever have a conflict, we do have a very small breakout discussion, kind of a makeup discussion that happens on another day of the week. So just letting you know that. Again, I highly always encourage you to come to Mondays. But again, if you have that like Uber emergency, then please let me know. We will be talking a little bit about the Grad Track Trophy and some announcements. For the Grad Track Trophy, hopefully you have all started planning your one-on-one meetings with your mentors. If you're an undergrad and if you're mentors, make sure you're reaching out to your undergrads to plan one-on-one meetings. Those all count towards our really awesome Grad Track Trophy. And so again, you're going to earn points as a team in order to try to win the coveted Grad Track Trophy. If you have applied to any summer research programs or graduate programs, we want to know, and today is your deadline to tell us. So make sure that you drop that in the Slack channel or email Lexi in order to, or even drop it in the chat here so we can save it in order to get those points awarded to you and your team. And what does your winning team get? We are planning some super extra special swag for you and for the team that wins. And we're also planning some really cool kind of web recognition for that too. And so right now, Circle 4 is in the lead right now. And again, we have not factored in all of the programs you've applied to. So get us that information so we can have an even more up-to-date leaderboard right here. I also want to talk about our t-shirt design. So you guys submitted your t-shirts, you voted on the t-shirts. We will be getting these t-shirts made and sharing them, mailing them out to you for both undergrad students and our active active undergraduate students and our graduate student mentors. And Circle 1's design 1. So we are getting these t-shirts made and we will be mailing these out to you. So props and thank you all for making designs. Is really, really close. So, but this will be exciting. So do at the end of the meeting today, make sure you submit any schools or undergraduate research programs you've applied to. Make sure you can, again, share in the Slack or email Lexi. By March 7th, I'm going to encourage you and you all to update your resume. So mentors, be on the lookout. You should have the box link and I will also drop that in our mentor Slack channel in order to access those resumes. So undergrads, make sure you're updating your resumes. March 21st, we're going to have an awesome meeting. We're going to bring in some faculty and we're going to talk about handling rejection and imposter syndrome because we all fail. And so it's a matter of how do we fail gracefully? How do we bounce back? And how do we kind of push ourselves further with every failure? So before our March 21st meeting, There are some really awesome videos by Dr. Toyin Ali on YouTube. And so I will share those out as well, probably within the next day or so. They are also linked in the Grad Track Action Pack. So those are some really awesome videos to watch. I got sucked into her like YouTube channel, so really fun. So any questions on that, or any questions or debrief from the session tonight? No. Are you guys excited? It's February. We only have 2 more sessions left. Any exciting news that anyone would like to share?
I have my grad school visit to Purdue this weekend.
Sweet. Very exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, be sure to hit up some mentors while you're here. So
Yeah, I did my prelims last semester, so I'm relieved.
Official PhD candidate, yeah?
Yes,
Right. Congrats.
thank you.
Very exciting. Awesome. Any other news? My mom was in town the last 2 weeks, so that was really nice to see her, and she safely made it back to Massachusetts. So bittersweet 2 weeks, but it was nice to see her. That's my special news. So very cool.
I got funding offers for 4 of the 5 universities I applied. Like 3 of them are fellowships. And I am going to Purdue like on 2 weeks, I think, or 3. Time's flying, so I am not longer aware.
Live by your calendar, right? So very, very cool. And again, if you're visiting programs right now, don't hesitate to reach out to your mentors, talk with them about kind of how to navigate that process, or you need someone to talk to about, what should I be asking? Hopefully you guys dropped all those questions to ask on campus interviews in your Slack channel. So you can always kind of scroll through others as well and pick some of those out. So excellent. Well, I know we're a couple minutes over, but thank you all so much. It's been a really great February session. I can't wait to see you all in March. So 2 more left. We're so close. Thank you, graduate mentors. Thanks, Janet. Thanks, Lexi. And thank you all undergrads. Have a good week.
Great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you.